Hey, John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com, and today I want to talk to you about a problem that I've had a lot in life and that I know a lot of people struggle with, and it's something that really can hold you back if you don't figure out how to get over this. So what I'm talking about is finishing what you started. I used to have a real big problem with finishing what I started. In fact, I know from talking to a lot of other developers, a lot of people in general, that this is a pretty common problem. Let me describe to you what this problem looks like, at least for me. So I would often start a project. I'd be really gung-ho about starting that project. I'd be really excited about it when I first would start doing it, whatever that project was. And then somewhere along the lines, maybe when I get to 90%, sometimes when I get to 10%, but somewhere along the line, I would quit before I'd get to the end. Now, I wouldn't intentionally quit. What would happen is I would back off from it. I would just put it sort of on the back burner for a little bit, and I would forget about it, or I would start to taper off of it. Sometimes I'd throw things out altogether, but most of the time, in my mind, I thought that I'm going to finish this thing. I'm just going to do this new thing right now because this is more exciting, and I'll get back to the old thing. Well, 90% of the time, I didn't get back to the old thing, and I left projects unfinished. Well, there's a big problem with leaving things unfinished, which is that you don't get any benefit from them. If you cook your meal 90% of the way, you can't really eat it, can you? If you create a house 90% of the way, you can't really live in it, can you? If you build software 90% of the way, you can't really sell it. And if you write a book 90% of the way, well, I guess you can pre-sell it, but eventually you're going to have to finish that thing if you don't want everyone asking for refunds. So there's a real big problem with not finishing what you started. And the biggest problem with not finishing with what you started is that you expend a lot of time and you don't get any return on that investment. So one way to think about this is, let's say that I set up this scenario and I said, okay, here's the deal. You can give me $100. If you give me $100, I'm going to give you back $200. But you can only give me the $100 in increments of 10. Now, it'd be pretty silly for you to give me $90 at 10 at a time, and then not give me the last $10, not put in the last $10 that would give you the return of $200. Instead, you'd lose $90. So it makes a lot of sense to finish what you started. If you think about your life the same way, the projects that you put in, time is money, and I'm definitely going to talk about this in another video, is how I view that there's really no difference between time and money, that you can swap them interchangeably. But if you think about the world in terms of time being the same as money, it's really the same exact scenario. You invest a bunch of time into something, and you only really get a payoff from that thing when you complete it. So it's really important to figure out how you can complete things that you start. And there's actually a simple solution for this. And what the solution is that you stick with it. And I know this is not actually simple, and it's simple to say, but it's hard to do. But you just have to keep this perspective in mind. I think the biggest problem for me is I didn't understand that I was giving someone $90, $10 at a time, and not paying the last $10 that would get me back the return. So I was just throwing away my money, or actually I was throwing away my time. But once I started to get that perspective, and that perspective came from me actually completing some projects and then getting a big payoff from completing those things. Once I got that perspective in my head, it became a lot easier for me to finish what I started. The other part of this that I'd encourage you to think about whenever you start any project is, how will this end? Now, when I do something new, I try to think about how it's likely to end. I start with the end in mind. And by doing that, it helps me to avoid things, or avoid starting things that I know I'm not going to finish, that I know are not going to end well, and to really have the mindset from the beginning of, how is this going to end? Where is this going to end? If you sit down to write a book, a lot of people have started writing their novels. They don't think a lot about how things are going to end and what that process is going to be. But if you think it through and you say, hey, if I'm going to write a 100,000 word novel, I need to write about 1,000 words a day, and it's going to take 100 days. And if I did that 3 days a week, this is how long it would take. You're more likely to complete it and finish it and get the payoff, the benefit from finishing your work. So thanks for checking out this video. Don't forget to check out my website at simpleprogrammer.com and let me know if you like this video, if you have any suggestions or comments on how to finish what you started. And I'll talk to you again next week. Take care.